Happy Monday. Heck yeah, Skip, ready to roll? I say seated. I say seated looks good to me. We'll follow Lisa's lead. And let's think about the transitions. So awareness at the end of the exhale, awareness on the end of the inhale, awareness on the beginning of the inhale, awareness on the beginning of the exhale. And at the same time, just letting the day kind of make its way away from the mat. Whatever the day had for us, let's just make sure that it stays outside of the perimeter of the mat. Paying attention to the beginning of the inhale, the beginning of the exhale, the end of the exhale, the end of the inhale. And we'll give ourselves 60 more seconds here. Last 15 seconds here. And let's utilize our next exhale to drop our chin down to our sternum. Try to feel how that impacts the back of the cervical spine. And then from that awareness of impact, let's start to explore the range of movement with our head and neck. So that the movement here is really about feeling the cervical spine and the supportive musculature as we explore the range of motion. And then we'll bring our head back to neutral, lift the chin back into a neutral alignment. And let's slide our hands behind us so that the thumbs bump up against us. If you interlace the fingers, if that feels comfortable, great. If not, you can just go kind of fingers splayed out. So, and that can be wider, right? So it could be at the lateral edge, something that feels accessible for the shoulders. And then let's lift the chin. And then once you get that chin lifted, think about drawing the shoulders down and back so that we're really creating room across the front of the throat. And then relax. Let the shoulders relax. And let's transition to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, slide your left foot straight back and behind you. Left toe mound connects and energize back through that left heel. And then with the palm down, reach the right hand forward. So a little bilateral expansion. Splay those fingers out on the right hand. See if you can feel some of that abdominal tissue coming into play. And release your right hand. Return your left knee. And then we'll do the same thing to the second side. Right leg extends back. That toe mount activates. The heel pressurizes. And the left arm extends forward, palm down. And it is not just the extension, but also try to get those fingers splayed out. That really helps capture that abdominal musculature. And then when you feel balanced, left to right, left hand returns, right knee mirrors the left. And we'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and roll our way back into down dog. Think about using that calf space. We don't usually have calf space available to us this early in class. So really think about using that to get those hips back into the depth of the shape. And then let's walk our way forward to the front of the mat. Inhale into lift. And hold your half lift for a full breath cycle, full inhale, full exhale. And then that second time you exhale, release back into the fold. Try to get the hamstring awareness, activation, depth. And then let's half lift once again. So inhale to half lift. Hold that space. Slide the hands up to the thighs so that you can create a little pressure. And try to pressurize into the thighs a little bit. Obviously not hyperextending the knees, so maybe a little knee bend to protect from that. And then let's use the hands to walk ourselves up towards mountain. There's a different musculature engagement as we land in a very frequented shape, right? So we're in our mountain. We have this verticalness, but there's a little bit of maybe even softness in the lumbar musculature because we didn't really use it to come up. Keep that while you engage the core, and then slide the seat back maybe like 20% into chair. Good depth. Let the hands fall towards the thighs, and then bring your torso low enough so that you can get the hands into the thighs with that like 20%-ish chair space. And think about lengthening with that lumbar musculature, that low back musculature being pretty at ease. Think about lengthening towards the crown of your head. And then release your torso towards your thighs. Again, right into that low back space. Let's plant our hands and we'll walk our way back into down dog. And now, calves and low back musculature is pretty open. Yeah, nice, Lisa. And so we have this really weird space. We have a lot of room, but in very unique spaces. Try to drive all the way back into that. And then when you feel like it's impossible to create further depth into your down dog, let's come down to hands and knees. And we'll flip the tops of the feet and sink into child's pose. And we'll just settle our way into our child's pose. Really breathing so that the back musculature can relax as much as is possible. And let's give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate for you, allow the hands to engage in the mat in front of you if they aren't already, and then we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, let's curl our toes, lift our seat, roll our way back into down dog, create that room and that depth. See if you can find a little more of that mid-back depth here. And then we'll walk our way forward to fold. From your fold, inhale into half lift. Splay the toes out wide, push into those toe prints. Exhale back into your fold. Really drop into the head so that the head fully expresses the length of the spine. Drift your awareness to your sacrum, and we're going to more traditionally roll our way up into mountain. Coming to mountain, hands together, heart center at the top of our mat. Let's slide our left foot straight back into lunge. Think about that calf strength that we started class with. Then ground the left heel and roll open into warrior two. Big expansiveness. See if you can feel that medial line starting to separate. And then let's bring our hands to our hips and slide back into our right hamstring. So we have triangle leg alignment. And then we're going to take like a 20% tilt forward, just enough to get that front leg activated, but not enough to feel any instability in the shape. And then just check in with your shoulders, make sure they're pointing towards the front and back of your mat. And then we'll bend the front knee and just follow that down towards side angle. So right hand towards the medial edge, big toe edge of that right foot. The left hand can extend up if it feels comfortable, or you can keep it on the hip. And then we will use this left oblique. Really think about squeezing into the left oblique as you draw yourself back up, warrior two. Left heel spins up to crescent. And we'll drop the hands and use that momentum to help us step back into mountain, where we'll just settle and breathe and be at ease, trying to find some balance across the hips. And then when you feel comfortable, right foot slides back. We think about the strength in that back leg first, not just the quad, but also into the, well, from the calf into the heel. And then right heel grounds, we roll open into two. Big medial line expansion, then the hands drop to the hips. We'll slide back into that left hamstring, triangle leg alignment, and then just enough tilt that you feel the activation on the posterior of that front leg, but not enough that there's any instability in the shape. Check on your shoulders, make sure they're pointing straight forward, straight back. And then we'll bend the front knee and drop the left hand down into side angle. Right hand can reach up or it can stay on the hip. Just depends on what feels best for you. Eventually, you're going to think about that right oblique, drawing you back up and into warrior two. Right heel spins up into crescent. Hands will drop to heart center, and we'll use that momentum to return to the front of the mat. Easy fluidity in our breath. Thinking about that cycle at the end and the beginning of each half. And then a 20% chair. So hips just start to hinge back. Hands find the thighs once again. Pressurize and lengthen. Think about lengthening the spine. And then keep that length as you bring your torso down towards your thighs. So we end up with a pretty generous knee bend, but also some really nice length. Like we're using the thighs as a ramp to elongate the back. And then hands plant, and we'll walk ourselves back into down dog. Shift your weight forward into plank and slowly lower yourself down to your belly. Keep those hands right underneath your shoulders and press down like 15 or 20% into the toe mounds so that there's a good anchoring at the base, at the foot side of your shape. And then let's lift our forehead maybe an inch off the mat. So for me, this is a pretty big baby cobra, right? We're getting into that upper back musculature. If you're feeling compression in the spinal column itself, lower your forehead and keep that top of the foot pressure. The top of the foot pressure makes the compression much more likely. So if you are feeling that, just lower down and think about length. And then we'll exhale and release. Hand slide underneath the forehead for a little crocodile pose. So there are these two sisters who live in this little village surrounded by streams and forests, more or less, in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. They live this very peaceful existence with their family. And they live in the same little village as this very famous cobbler. And they happen to be moving out of their parents' homes. And they're moving into separate neighboring homes. Their parents are selling their house and moving out of the country. Let's give ourselves just 30 more seconds here. And the biggest thing to know about these sisters is they've always had very, very different personalities. The older of the two sisters has always been very cautious, conservative. Younger of the two sisters has been much more free-spirited and adventurous. When you're ready, let's slide our hands back underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, let's take our left toe mound and slide that straight back and behind us. And we're headed towards one of my favorite shapes. It's a modified down dog. So it's just rolling straight up. The legs don't change shape at all. Or legs don't change position at all, would be a better way to describe that. And then we're going to use this pressure to just slide our right foot forward into lunge. Now, it can be pretty hard to get your right foot forward enough so that it's in between the hands. So don't feel like walking that foot forward is a problem. And then let's sweep ourselves up into crescent. Ground our left heel and open into warrior two. Then bring our hands back to our hips like we were the previous cycle through. Okay, we're going to keep the front knee bent. So really think about this vertical tibia and fibia, and then think about laying the lateral edge of the right side of your torso on your right thigh. So the right elbow is in front of the thigh, and we're working to get that torso as close to that thigh as possible. So this is very much a side angle shape, but it is also a very deep expansion here. And the positioning of this right elbow really helps to open up the side body. And then let's draw ourselves back up into two. I can feel the work that we put on that hamstring. Left heel spins up. We'll come into crescent. Float the hands down to the mat and step your right foot back into down dog. Come down to hands and knees tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Feel the asymmetry in the hamstrings as you sink back into child's pose. And feel how that asymmetry in the hamstring, so the right hamstring, which has taken the burden of that shape, allows for some imbalance in the sacrum across the hip girdle. Think about finding balance there, and then pull yourself forward to hands and knees tabletop. And we'll slide the right foot straight back. Right toe mound presses into the mat. We activate and strengthen that leg, then lift ourselves up into this modified version of down dog. And then we'll use this shape to slide our left foot forward into lunge. Create that stability, sweep yourself up to crescent, ground your right heel and roll yourself open into two. Drop your hands to your hips. The left elbow is coming in on that medial edge of the left thigh, and we're trying to take this left side of our torso down to that left thigh. It is a very deep version of side angle. Really think about maximizing that space. And then when you feel balanced left to right, we'll draw ourselves up, blossom to two, right heel spins up to crescent, float the hands down to the mat, step the left foot back into down dog, shift your weight forward to plank, then drop to hands and knees, flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Now we have a lot of openness in the hamstrings, and we crafted that openness in an unusual way. Can you get the glutes to push back into the space you've created? So we use a lot of strength in the hamstring to put that strain on, but we didn't have it at full tension. And so we now have a hamstring that has a pretty good amount of blood flow capacity, and that can create some physical swelling of the hamstring, and it can prevent you from getting back into the shape. So really think about hips all the way back, even if it's pushing with the hands into the mat and manually lengthening into this full capacity of the shape. And we're just going to give ourselves 15 more seconds here. And then when it feels appropriate, pulling ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, curling the toes, lifting the seat, driving back into that hamstring space. Note where the sensations are. Right? Pretty likely, possible, maybe pretty possible that you're feeling the calf restriction now because the hamstrings have some openness. Can you make sure that you get the hips up high enough so that you can express the hamstrings without being completely limited by the calves? And then we'll walk ourselves forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Yeah, nice skip, dropping all the way into that fold. Awareness drifts to the sacrum, and we'll sweep or roll our way up and into mountain. Settle here. We're going to counteract all that hamstring space with a little quad strength. So let's sink our feet back into a full expression of chair, really getting the quads into this shape so that they set the strength without losing any of that back neutrality. And then rise back up. Take your left foot and just slide that back so that the big toes on the left foot, I'm not mirroring. So big toes on the left foot line up with the middle of the arch on the right. And make sure you have roughly 2 fist distance as well. So same width setup, but a little offset of the feet. And then we're going to go back into chair. And so we want here with the offset foot space to still keep our hips balanced and even. And then we'll rise back up. Left foot slides forward. Feel how the low back responds to that. And then slide your right foot back into that offset. So big toe, middle of the left arch. And then we will sink back into this offset chair. Again, really ensuring that we keep the hips actively lined up here. And then we'll come forward, sweep the arms up and overhead, and exhale through forward fold. And we want to feel the low back expression. Yes, nice, Lisa. Really getting that low back expression into this. Hold. Plant your hands. We'll walk ourselves back into down dog. And then sail your right foot straight back and behind you, three-legged dog. And we'll step our right foot forward into lunge. Ground your left heel. Take your right hand to the big toe edge, medial edge of your right foot. Take your left hand up into side angle. And then slide back into your right hamstring. So getting back into that triangle space. Think about long lateral line. Drop the left hand, but keep the left heel grounded. Take your right hand to the outer edge of your right foot, pinky edge of your right foot, and then extend your left arm straight forward, palm down, fingers splayed out wide, and try to feel this oblique space on the left side. Receive that length. There's a tendency to want to fall over to the right. Really stay middle line, belly button centered. Left hand drops, left heel spins up, right foot steps back into down dog. Some nice asymmetry there. Shift your weight forward to plank. Lift your seat back into down dog. Sail the left foot straight back and behind you. And then we'll step that left foot forward into lunge. Ground the right heel. Left hand comes to the big toe edge, medial edge, side angle. And then from your side angle, just slide back into your left hamstring for a little triangle. Good. Hamstring centric triangle with this sneaky little backdoor approach. And then when you feel balance left to right, the right hand's going to come down, the left hand's going to come to the lateral edge, pinky toe edge, and the right hand extends forward. Really getting that right side lateral edge space. Keep your weight in the middle, so you're going to want to fall to the left this time. Right hand plants, right heel spins up, left foot slides back into down dog. And let's tiptoe our way forward to the front of the mat. Inhale into half lift. And exhale back into fold. And grab opposite elbows here and just rock a little side to side. Trying to find the mid-body length that we created and just shift or allow for the expansion to come from that lateral line. And then let's shift our awareness to our sacrum and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Eventually, coming to a mountain, hands at heart center. Hands at heart center. Take your feet from 2 fist to 3 fist distance. So just a little wider than normal. And then let's sink our seat back into chair. Same awareness and integrity of the low back. It's a little easier to arch the low back here. The pelvic bowl, because we've given it more width, has a tendency to start to tilt. Really think about core engagement to prevent that. And then let's Drop our hands, follow it through to the fold. Note the calf and hamstring relationship here. See how that's changed? And let's plant our hands and walk ourselves back into down dog. Use as much depth as you can create. Shift forward to plank, and we'll slowly, gently, delicately lower ourselves down onto our belly. Hands underneath the shoulders, fingers splayed out wide. Press into the tops of the feet, maybe 15 to 20%. And we're going to give ourselves that little baby cobra lift. So maybe 1 to 2 inches max. Huge lift, especially with the pressure on the tops of the feet. If there's any compression, we're just lowering the forehead. And then we'll relax. Slide our hands underneath our forehead for a little crocodile pose. And so with kind of family anchors of their parents leaving, these two sisters have a little bit of a divergence based upon their personalities. The younger sister tends to spend her time pursuing the things that feel fulfilling. And the older sister, with her more cautious approach, tends to fill her time doing things that are both dual purpose, fulfilling, but also preparative. So her older sister plants this huge and beautiful garden. And as the spring continues and rolls on to the summer, her garden becomes the talk of the entire town. And we're going to give ourselves 50 more seconds here. And so, as this huge garden starts to flourish in the summer, the older sister spends free time, sometimes sun up to sundown, picking and canning fruits and vegetables. And she ends up with this root cellar absolutely packed full of fruits and vegetables. And as summer starts to wane on and the nights get a little bit colder, she uses that time to find any areas in her house where the drafts are getting in. And she tears little shreds of cotton from one of her old shirts. And she used those threads of, or those strands of cotton to fill in these holes where the drafts are able to come in. Meanwhile, her younger sister, when you're right, when you're ready, let's slide our hands underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, let's curl our toes, lift our seat, and find our way back into down dog. Her older sister, or younger sister, excuse me, spent the summer pressing back into that length, drive into that space. And her younger sister took the doors and the windows off her house in the summer so that the breeze could more freely blow through her home. And as the weather changes, we'll walk ourselves forward to the front of the mat. Her younger sister, while her older sister is filling in gaps, the younger sister is putting the doors and the windows back onto her home as the nights cool down. Inhale into half lift. Exhale into fold. Settling into that fold space. Drift your awareness to your sacrum and let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into our top space. Let's slide our right foot straight back and into lunge, and sweep the arms up, fully express crescent. Think about how neutral we can get that mid body, and then drop the hands to the mat. Ground your right heel and bring your right hand to the medial edge, big toe edge of your left foot. Then your left hand's gonna come on your left thigh. And you have a couple of choices here. You can just rotate that shoulder up with the left knee bent into a little twist, or you can slide back into that left hamstring and twist and fully express a revolved triangle. Depending upon how your low back feels, how the hamstring feels, how that calf feels, surprising how much calf requirement is in a revolved triangle. And then left hand drops to the mat. Right heel spins up. We'll sweep ourselves up into crescent. Little instability from that fatigue on the hamstring. Drop your hands to heart center and utilize that to return to the front of the mat. Nice work. Take a round of breath and just feel your body deactivate, come into ease, and then we'll slide our left foot straight back. Lunge, fully express crescent. Think about this mid-body length. Then we drop the hands to the mat, ground our left heel. Left hand comes over towards the right big toe mound, and then the right hand comes on to the right thigh. This can be just a rotation to that right shoulder, or you can slide back into the right hamstring and revolve our triangle. Completely depends on how your body feels and what offers the maximum benefit for you. When you're comfortable, right hand comes down, left heel spins up, sweep yourself up into crescent, side two. A little bit of instability. When you're ready, we drop the hands to heart center and we utilize that to return to the front of the mat. Inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. Turn the palms towards the front of your room. And exhale through forward fold. Melt into that space. Just drift into this fold with each breath cycle. And then let's slowly, gently, delicately release our glutes towards our heels, towards a little malasana. And then we'll extend our legs out in front of us. And as the legs extend, just follow them forward into fold. And so now as the younger sister has put the doors and windows back on her house, and the older sister has sealed up every possible area of draft or lack of air tightness, the two sisters head out into the forest, but for different reasons. The older sister heads out and she collects firewood, and the younger sister heads out and she admires the beauty of the changing leaves, that fall color change. And almost instantaneously as they get back, the weather breaks. Winter comes early and it's a brutally cold, snow-filled winter. The younger sister's caught completely off guard with no fuel for her fire, no preserved food. And so she turns to her older sister for help. Last 20 seconds here in this fold. And we'll walk ourselves up into seat and lower ourselves onto our back for a little appreciation of the work we've done. Really thinking about how your spine can be greeted and supported here. Easy and fluid with your breath. And we'll give ourselves 60 more seconds just to settle in here. Just really appreciate how your spine feels, how it's supported, how your breath can create more neutrality with that relaxation of the entirety of the posterior. And so recognizing that her younger sister is ill prepared, the older sister with plenty of food, plenty of firewood, and plenty of graciousness in her heart invites her into her home. And the two sisters have more than everything they would need thanks to the older sister's preparation. And let's inhale and bring our knees into a bent position, kneecaps towards the ceiling. And let your arms open up towards cactus. And then exhale your knees over to the left. And then inhale back to neutral. And exhale the knees back to the left. So same side. And then push that top knee so that it stacks or nearly stacks on top of the left. And then inhale back to neutral. And we'll exhale the knees over to the right. And inhale back to neutral. And then exhale back to the right. And then push the left knee, the top knee, so that it stacks or nearly stacks the bottom knee, the right knee. And then inhale back to neutral. Let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide. And be at ease here. Feel soft here, supported here. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself here. And we'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds. And when it feels right for you, as it feels right for you, let's bring our knees back to neutral. Kneecaps point towards the ceiling. And we'll start to allow the knees to just dynamically sway. Now, this is completely up to you how you utilize this rotation, what feels best for your body, what feels most impactful for your body. Next time that the knees fall over towards the left, let's allow them to settle there. And so as this brutally cold, extra snowy winter carries on, the two sisters with more than everything they need start to share the older sister's preparations for food or firewood with other members of the community who were caught ill prepared. And the older sister starts to teach the younger sister how to can food and how to seal up gaps in the windows and the doors, the walls, how to cut, split, and prepare firewood, how to start fires. And the older sister's preparations really end up being a saving grace for the community over this brutal winter. When it feels appropriate, as it feels appropriate, knees come back to neutral. And then we'll exhale our knees over the second side, the right side. Until the mayor of this little village comes down and he thanks these two sisters for all the work they've done over the winter. And he asks how this village can repay them. And the two sisters think about it for a little while and they decide what they would love, what they would appreciate the most is a community festival in the spring. Something to celebrate the end of winter and to get everyone together in a public space. And of course, the mayor says, absolutely, we'll hold a spring festival. And so they do. Last 30 seconds here. At the end of the festival, there's this big bonfire raging. And the mayor calls the two sisters up onto the stage and he publicly thanks them in front of everyone. When it feels right, as it feels right, knees come back to neutral. Give yourself a little dynamic movement here. Work out any last residual stickiness. And then eventually just ask yourself if there's anything that your body would benefit from. Could be impactful. Maybe it's just wanted before Shavasana. And if there is, let's offer that. And if you are ready for some stillness, if you feel like stillness is the thing that should come next, then let's allow your body to find that as well. Eventually, we'll all find our way into a shape where we can fully appreciate Shavasana. So the mayor's on the stage and he's thanking these two sisters for all of the help, all of the things they've done to benefit the community over the winter. And as he's wrapping things up, he says, the action of these two young girls reminds us all of an often forgotten truth. And he looks at the older sister in particular and he says, just like the effort put in tending a garden makes it bloom, so too do the choices we make allow our fate to bloom. And we'll start to bring some movement into our fingers and our toes, into our wrists and our ankles, up into the elbows and the knees, shoulders and the hips, neck and head. Eventually, the entirety of our body will move and we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in and return ourselves into a seat. Finding a seat where our spine can be tall, our breath can be fluid, and our eyes can close. Feel the spine. Create a place where your skull can rest weightlessly. And we'll inhale our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that it is not fate that determines our lives, but our choices and actions that determine our fate? And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday, guys. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. Have a beautiful rest of your week. I'll be back on Sunday to recharge, and we'll do this thing again next Monday. Love the heck out of you. Wow.